you for joining us today on Earthfile. Welcome to the program. I'm Ayola Kasim. It has been said that it is impossible to imagine a pathway to decarbonization without imagining it being fully lined with trees. So there is a critical need to address deforestation, transform agricultural practices, and harness nature-based solutions like afforestation and reforestation if efforts to reduce global temperature to within 1.5 degrees Celsius could be achieved. And we've also been told that the path to sustainable reforestation isn't easy, but with the right approach, we can achieve significant ecological benefits. Today, we'll look at renewed efforts to getting it right. Do stay with us. Due to rising population, poor governance, unemployment, and declining quality of livelihoods, villagers encroach into forest reserved areas to plant, log trees, and exploit forest resources to meet their daily needs. While the importance of farming to meet the billions of tons of food and dietary needs of the world's growing population is paramount, conservationists warn efforts must be expended to sustain Earth's natural resources while we source for food. According to the Global Forest Watch, there were 31,557 deforestation alerts reported in Nigeria between the 31st of December 2024 and the 7th of January 2025, covering a total of 386 hectares, of which 0.41% were high-confidence alerts.
We have so many climate change issues, and most of it stems from the fact that we have lost the green spaces, not only in this country, but all over the world. So we had that as one of our strategic pillars, green recovery. And we're trying to reforest the country. You can have the carbon dioxide, you can ensure that we have the biodiversity that comes from trees. And we need to educate ourselves. Empowerment, capacity building, education, particularly to the children, to the youth, so that we all understand the importance of ensuring that we have greenery around us. And apart from even the climate change, even the relaxation, the stimulation, the peace of mind you get when being in a green space, it's amazing. Even when you sit and you're just looking at the ocean or the water and you have water around you, it's so much to your psyche, it does so much to our psyche.
As the world faces an urgent need to mitigate climate change, officials of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation say it is proactively creating a bridge to harmonize nature and people and restore the country's degraded ecosystems.
For the Green Recovery Nigeria,
Folake Salau is tasked with coordinating the green recovery efforts of the Nigerian Conservation Foundation, a major tree planting initiative to enhance Nigeria's vegetation cover.
So because of the ecosystem services that the tree provides, we need to consistently strive to make sure that all the lost forests, we bring them back. Because when you bring back the forest, you bring back the rivers, you bring back the biodiversity. And there are countries who don't even have as much as we have, and they are thriving only on what the environment have. You have the Eastern African countries, the species, safari, but we can't do safari. But we used to have lions. We used to have all the big, animals that people go and pay dollars to go and see in those countries. I remember speaking with the Emir of Katsina, and he mentioned that between early 80s, that in Daura and Katsina, there were elephants. But it looks like a fallacy because you can imagine what Daura is presently now in Katsina, and you begin to wonder that there used to be elephants because it's almost a desert. So where will the elephants stay? Where will the lions stay? So we need to, work to bring back this 25%, which is the recommended standard by the FAO, that's the Food and Agriculture Organization, for all the countries across the world. And Nigeria is a signatory to the Paris Agreement. Mm-hmm. We are also part of the African Forest Restoration 100, which aims to restore 100 million hectares of land. And the last administration committed to restoring 4 million hectares. But where are we? How many hectares have been restored? So we need to follow up on all this. We sign signatories. How far have we gone? Out of the 4 million we said we're going to restore, how many have we done? What is our target? What's the roadmap to achieving that 4 million hectares? Because it's easy to just be part of an agreement, but when you don't have a roadmap to achieve it, then it becomes difficult. At NCF, as an organization, we came up with the Green Recovery Nigerian project to respond to this, because we realized that we want to conserve the animal and the plant species. But the more the forests are knocked down, the lesser the conservation work that we will be able to do. And where we are now is one of our signature projects, that when you allow the environment on its own, it can regenerate, and then the species naturally will come back. Here used to be a fallow land, and then we allowed it 30 years to regenerate. The monkeys are back, the crocodiles are back, the snakes are back. We have bush bucks, we have antelopes within the Lekki Conservation Area. And what people don't really want to quantify is the fresh air. This is the only place in Lagos you can come and breathe fresh air. And then we easily forget in our, hustle for daily to make ends meet, that what we really need for our health is the fresh air. So if you have a tree, a mango tree, an almond tree within your compound, it purifies the air within that environment and allows you to breathe in fresh air. And it prolongs our life.
The Nigerian Conservation Foundation played a key role in the formulation and adoption of Nigeria's revised National Forest Policy in 2020 and has a long history of restoration work in the Hadejia Nguru wetland of northeastern Nigeria. The organization's Green Recovery Nigeria initiative was developed to conserve and restore Nigeria's forestry, which has been degraded at an alarming rate. The initiative intends to help increase forest cover from less than 7% to 25% by 2047.
The highlight for us is that we have galvanized partnerships, especially with different corporate organizations, and we're able to plant at least 283,000 trees, seedlings last year. And the good thing about our tree planting, we don't call it tree planting per se, but tree nurturing, because we want to ensure that any tree we plant survives, and even if they don't survive, maybe we plan to have like 85 to 95% survival. If the rest that don't survive, we have a bit of planting for 2-3 years to ensure that what we plant survives, and that is how we are able to make progress with regreening Nigeria that we set out to do with our partners.
In the international and national agenda, the role of forests in mitigating and adapting to climate change is reaffirmed. More interestingly, the recognition of their role in adaptation and water cycles is finally gaining some traction. According to the State of the World's Forest 2024 report done by the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations, forests absorb around 11 billion tons of carbon dioxide annually. Forests are also irreplaceable reservoirs of biodiversity, housing up to 80% of all terrestrial species and supporting the livelihoods of millions. At the United Nations Convention on Biological Diversity, called COP16 in Cali, Colombia in 2024, this role was highlighted at the launch of the Forest Factor, a report by the UNCBD and the Collaborative Partnership on Forests that highlight how forest conservation, restoration, and sustainable management is key in achieving Kunming-Montreal Global Biodiversity Framework targets.
We are all working towards a goal, and it's not only us. It's a world. It's a world emergency. We have climate conferences every year. We have all the issue of burning fossil fuels and all that conferences coming together, all the G7 coming together, the countries coming together annually now, because this is a world emergency. So we have to aim to get it right. We cannot get it right 100%, but we have to work towards a goal. And that is the essence of the education, working towards that goal.
Through the Green Recovery Nigeria initiative, the NCF established a wildlife sanctuary in the Omo Forest Reserve. The reserve holds the last remaining forest in southwestern Nigeria, but is threatened by logging and hunting, among other human activities. The foundation is conserving this forest through advocacy and community engagement, and it is also at the forefront of fighting for the protection of degraded forest areas across the region.
So the Green Recovery Nigeria has different components. So one component is to actively plant trees, but another component is to ensure that the trees, the greens that we have are not cut down. And that is why we try to work with as many stakeholders as possible, both private and government at the national and the subnational level, to get us land so that we can protect. Because usually the Lekki Conservation Center is a classical example. When you protect nature, nature bounces back. So as we are planting trees actively, we are also trying to protect a lot of green spaces. Even if it's degraded, just give it to us. We are going to do what we did with the Lekki Conservation Center. And in the next few years, you will see how nature will bounce back. Well, we'll have enrichment planting, quite all right. But nature in itself, because we have those dormant seeds there that are lying down there, when the area is protected, they will grow back. In Abuja, in different states, working closely with Ogun State governments and other states as well that are willing to give us land, Kano State government, and anywhere we find land, we're able to protect that space, plant it up, and then it will grow. So we are restoring degraded landscape, while we're also actively planting, and we're also targeting critical ecosystems like watershed, very important, like areas along hills that are very important to protect from landslide. And I'll use this opportunity also to talk about the deforestation that is happening in Ogumpa area in Ibadan, and it's very important. That is, I must state here that is a disaster waiting to happen, because when that landslide happens, even the estate that is going to be established in that place, the so-called Baywood Estate, will be destroyed, and it will also destroy the community's lower part of that hill, and then it will also come with also destruction of lives. And that is what we're calling upon, because that place is a watershed and a green area in an urban setting that should be protected. We are talking about bringing gardens into our cities, but areas, other countries are even talking about putting cities in gardens. That is making everywhere as green as possible, because as government has a responsibility to protect its citizens, both lives and property, and one of those ways is to ensure that the environment is healthy for its citizens. And then it will help the government cut down costs on healthcare, on social amenities, and on other areas as well. So that is why we continue to call and try to make sure that we get green spaces, we plant trees, and we make sure that the environment is healthy, so that the environment will continue to protect humans.
Nigeria has lost 10% of its tree cover, equivalent to over 1 million hectares of natural forest. Since the start of the 21st century, agricultural expansion, poor waste management, and bush burning have contributed to this decline. To create a future where biodiversity is thriving, protected, and sustainably managed for the benefit of all, the NCF says people need to live in harmony with nature.
We should use ecological funds for what is meant to be used, so that we don't wait and when there's disaster we start calling for donations. If ecological funds is deployed for what it is, because the wisdom of the people who established ecological funds is to prevent such things, so that by the time we deploy ecological funds, it will serve as protective. It is a protective measure, so that we don't start being reactive. We are being proactive when we use ecological funds, or what is meant to use for, to be able to arrest some of these ecological issues. So once it's done, it helps in saving lives, it helps in saving property, and it helps in saving millions and billions of naira.
The world is at risk of large-scale and potentially irreversible environmental changes, with major threats related to climate, biodiversity, natural resources, and human well-being. As the window for action narrows, and as population growth and aspirations place new demands on physical resources, it seems clear that natural ecosystems are vital assets that must be restored, maintained, and sustainably managed. Forests cover nearly 1/3 of the Earth's land surface, but the area is shrinking despite efforts to halt deforestation and restore degraded lands. The threat of advancing sand dunes and the land degradation is strikingly evident across Mauritania, which is almost 90% desert. Without intervention, rural communities risk losing not only their homes and villages, but also their livelihoods, food sources, and livestock. In Mauritania, climate change and rising temperatures are accelerating desertification and exacerbating food insecurity and poverty. In this country, in Northwest Africa, the Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations supports the communities to grow food by halting desertification and restoring fertile land. Teslim, a 65-year-old mother of 4, is a farmer and community leader in Mufta El Kur, a village on the verge of the Sahara, about 150 kilometers southeast of Mauritania's capital. She has witnessed the impact of the changing climate.
This year, the rain has not been good in the region compared to other years. The season was bad.
FAO's Action Against Desertification program is supporting Mauritanian communities in creating protective barriers around their villages. The barriers consist of restored and reforested land used as community farms. Farmers like Teslim grow vegetables, fruit trees, forage crops, and poultry on the community farms for their own consumption and generate income from sales in local markets. Teslim's community has benefited from the support of the Mauritanian National Agency for the Great Green Wall. This includes provision of boreholes and solar panels for irrigation, seeds and seedlings of fruit trees such as banana, mango, and dates. The agency is responsible for the fight against desertification in the country in partnership with the FAO. Community involvement is a central element of the Great Green Wall initiative, which is not only aimed at combating desertification, but also at creating sustainable livelihoods for rural development.
We
have to support these populations with income-generating activities. These activities can bring income in 3 months, 4 months, 6 months maximum, and that is what the FACI are. The facility is to first secure the populations so that they participate in the major reforestation actions.
Plants and trees cultivated on community farms shield villages from encroaching sand.
Everything around us was occupied by dunes. But since the project was implemented, the dunes have been stabilized. Many trees have grown since the project started.
Mauritania is in a key location to contain the Sahara's advance further south.
Mauritania is in a unique position. It means that it's kind of the entry point, the barrier, okay, the gate to help also other countries further south. If you go south, for example, you have Senegal. We have the same phenomenon in Senegal. But if you don't manage to block it from Mauritania's side, of course, he'll go down further south.
To expand the impact of the Great Green Wall, the FAO is supporting the introduction of innovative solutions, such as agricultural drones to seed for land restoration in large, scarcely populated areas. This technology allows small communities to restore larger areas in less time.
Currently, the best of the solution that we got so far is to use the drone technology. The drone technology to help with seeding. The direct seeding, for example, in 100 hectares, the community will do maximum 20 to 25 hectares. And then we use the drone technology to mimic that and then to dispatch that direct seeding for the 80 or 75%, 75 hectares on that part of land. That is coming as a useful tool to help compensate what the community cannot access by hand using the drone technology to dispatch the seed for the direct seeding. Massive, massive improvement.
The interventions in Mauritania are part of the implementation of Africa's Great Green Wall Initiative, aiming to create green productive landscapes across the 8,000 kilometers of North Africa, the Sahel, and the Horn of Africa. Adopted by the African Union in 2007, the Great Green Wall Initiative seeks to restore 100 million hectares of degraded land across the 11 participating countries by 2030. The Great Green Wall in Mauritania aims to restore 500,000 hectares of degraded land by 2030. In 2023, for the first time on record, the FAO estimated that more than 4 billion people lived in countries experiencing temperatures exceeding 1.5 degrees Celsius above average. The FAO also estimated that almost 3 billion hectares, corresponding to 60% of the agricultural area, were exposed to higher than average temperatures. The growing frequency and intensity of disasters and extreme weather are increasing the vulnerabilities of those relying on weather-dependent agriculture, aggravating poverty, food insecurity, and malnutrition. Reducing land degradation through agricultural land restoration will contribute to the transition toward sustainable agri-food systems with more and better food production and for a better environment.
What should we take care of first? If you take care of your environment, if you begin to look at conservative approach to even subsistence farming, and then, so you're doing your pond and you're using, your feed from, the pond as manure, as well as, to make sure that your vegetables are receiving their fertilizer rather than use artificial fertilizers and so on and so forth. You find that you have a higher yield and you're feeding your family more nutritiously and they'll be less ill. And so, it's just a function of becoming more educated about the need to look at poverty, from a more holistic view. And that if you actually, take the pain to take care of your environment, the chances are that your overall well-being, and quality of life will be improved.
The United Nations Convention to Combat Desertification says up to 40% of the world's land is degraded, directly harming half of the global population, the majority of whom live in developing countries. Land degradation, droughts, and desertification have long been major issues in Nigeria, which has experienced continuous deforestation over the previous decade. A report says that if no quick action is taken to stem the rate of forest loss in the country, a further 25% of the country's surviving forest will vanish by 2060, transforming a large portion of the country into degraded and desolate land. One of the writers of the Nigeria's Climate Change Act, Professor Chukwumerije Okereke, says it is impossible to imagine Nigeria's path to decarbonization without imagining it being fully lined with trees. So there is a critical need to address deforestation, transform agricultural practices, and harness nature-based solutions like afforestation and reforestation if Nigeria were serious about reaching net zero by 2060. A commitment the Nigerian government made at COP26 in Glasgow, United Kingdom.
Climate change action involves winners and losers, and this is not often well understood by commentators. For every action, there may be people who will lose and people who will benefit. The transition, for example, away from fossil fuel to green energy could result in some people that have high power in the fossil fuel industry losing power and new emergent incumbents having power. Some nations are still struggling to understand the way in which they can act on climate change and still keep a competitive edge. And this is the challenge that we face in making more rapid progress. And so what we need to do is to continue to argue, to show how we can combine climate action and the pursuit of, the good life, development, economic growth, but also to argue that, growth is not everything. Profit is not everything. And sometimes we need to put, Mother Earth, humanity, morality, justice, equity first. And it is working, but it's not working as fast. So we need to continue to press the argument and double down the diplomacy and hope that we can get more traction and more progress.
That's our show for the week. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next week.